Yeah. All right. Why don't we go ahead and get started? It is 5:02 and we're all set. So we'll do the roll call. Tuan,
Here.
Guillermo,
Here.
and Miles Durfee here. We have three, and Michael and Kelly are absent tonight. So we have three, and we do have a quorum. All right. So we will. Do we need to check, Mario, if we have everybody on? So do you want to go ahead and we'll just do the, I know we usually do that a little bit later, but let's go ahead and do that now.
Okay. Is there any public comments from Vista Heritage Global Academy? Vista Condor Global Academy?
Not at the moment, no.
Vista Heritage Global Academy? Vista Palm Lane Global Academy? Vista Charter Middle School Global Academy?
None at the moment.
Okay, so there is no public comments.
Okay, and we have everybody on, we have all the sites on site. Okay, let me go back to 1.2 and get the approval of the agenda. You have the agenda in front of you. So I'll take a motion for the approval of the agenda.
I motion that.
Thank you.
A second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 None opposed? Okay, that passes 3-0. So we've approved the agenda, and then we have the consent items in front of us, 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, and 2.4. I'll take a motion for all of the consent items.
I motion that.
A second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And that's approved 3-0. Now we'll move to, so tonight we're going to have some public hearings on the local control accountability plans. So we'll move to 3.1, the public hearing. And I think, Alyssa, you're going to help us
Yes.
out with that?
Yes.
Okay.
So good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. I now call to order the public hearing for the 2025 and 26 Local Control and Accountability Plans, or LCAPs, for Vista Heritage Global Academy, Vista Condor Global Academy, Vista Horizon Global Academy, Vista Charter Middle School, Palm Lane Global Academy, and Vista Meridian Global Academy. This hearing is being held in compliance with California Education Code 47606.5, which requires that the governing board of a charter school hold a public hearing to solicit comments from the public regarding the specific actions and expenditure proposed in the LCAP. Our purpose today is to share the key elements of our LCAP and listen to feedback from our stakeholders and before the plan is formally adopted. It is also important to note that each school has solicited stakeholder feedback during the school year to inform the development of their LCAP. The LCAP is a critical part of our accountability system. It outlines how we plan to meet our goals for all students, particularly for our unduplicated students, English language learners, students with disabilities, foster youth, and low-income students. I will now give an overview of each Vista school's LCAP. This year, we have updated the LCAPs to better align our goals and actions, not only with our projected expenditures, but also with Vista's strategic plans and the measures in which we are already held accountable, such as the California School Dashboard. Goal number 1 in our LCAP is titled Educating the Whole Child. Our rigorous educational program will empower students to become engaged, compassionate global citizens through an innovative STEAM and CTE focused educational experience that integrates academic excellence with social emotional development. Guided by the California Community Schools Framework, its 4 pillars, we will implement a comprehensive MTSS, multi-tiered system of support that addresses the whole child by seamlessly connecting academic, behavioral, and mental health interventions. This integrated approach will eliminate barriers to learning, close achievement gaps across all student groups, and ensure all graduates possess the knowledge, skills, attitude, and mindsets necessary for success in higher education, the workforce, and our global economy. The actions in Goal 1 are assessments of learning, multi-tiered systems of support and accelerated learning, multi-tiered systems of support in social and emotional learning and mental health supports, access to a broad course of study, empowering students with disabilities academically, and accelerating English learner success. Goal number 2 in our LCAP is titled Professional Growth. Vista will cultivate a collaborative leadership structure that empowers educators, staff, and administrators through shared decision-making and continuous improvement process. by investing in a robust professional development focus on MTSS implementation, targeted instruction coaching, differentiated strategies, and standards-aligned STEAM instruction. We will build collective expertise while fostering distributed leadership. This comprehensive approach to professional growth and data-driven improvement will strengthen our learning community, elevate instructional practices, and create sustainable systems that maximize student achievement and well-being, ensuring all students receive the supports needed to thrive as college and career-ready global citizens. The actions in Goal 2 are core instructional staffing, professional learning and development, core curricular and instructional materials, and educational technology and support. Finally, Goal 3 is titled Family and Community Partnership. VISTA will strengthen family and community partnerships to create a collaborative support network that enhances student success and school improvement efforts. The actions in Goal 3 are safe facilities, parents as decision makers, and school family partnerships. We will now open the floor for public comment on the LCAP. If you would like to speak, please complete a speaker card or raise your hand depending wherever you might be. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes to provide comments. So I'd like to open the hearing. Are there any public comments at anywhere online for the LCAP hearing?
Is there any public comments? No, there is no public comments.
Any questions? Yep.
Okay, so we can go ahead and then close the public
Yep.
hearing.
Yep, it's yep. I think this now concludes the public hearing on the local control and accountability plans. I will now turn the meeting back over to Miles.
Great. Okay. So we have in front of us item 3.1. And I think what we need to do is look at that's for the public hearing for the local accountability plan for Vista Heritage Global Academy and for the other schools. And so we can start with a motion on that to approve. So, and then we can have a discussion about local control accountability plans and questions. Is there a motion to approve?
I motion that.
Okay.
I second.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second on the table. So Alyssa gave us a description of the local control accountability plans that have been published. They're in your board packets. These are these are guiding documents that are approved annually that set out the metrics and help the school determine its goals and progressions for each school as to their results and how they're doing. This is an important document from a state compliance standpoint, but it's also an important document to help be one of the factors of how we strategically move forward as an organization at the school sites. Are there any questions about the 3.1, the local control accountability plans?
No.
Questions?
No, I have no questions. I reviewed it.
Okay, great. Okay, so without any other questions and no public comment, we'll go ahead and vote. So all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, any opposed? 3-0, it carries. All right, we can move to local or to agenda item 4.1. How are these different, Alyssa? Do you know?
So 4.1 is the approval.
The hearing is 3.1.
3.1 was the
Thank you.
hearing,
Thank
and
you,
then
Dr. Okay.
4.1, and so then now you're, so you just did
Action
4.1.
items.
Yeah, so let's just clarify for the record then. 3.1, we had a hearing and it closed. There was no action taken. On 4.1, let's go ahead and do that officially again. Thank you, sorry.
I motion that for 4.1.
Motion to approve.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. No further discussion. So all in favor, aye.
Aye.
None opposed. So now 4.1 carries 3-0. Thank you for helping me out through that. All right, we'll now move on to number 4.2, which is the dashboard of local indicators for Vista Heritage and Global Academy for all of our schools. Is there a motion?
I motion that.
I second.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Anything, Alyssa, that you wanted to cover on this? You don't have to if there's nothing you.
Nothing
Okay.
from this one.
Okay, any discussion or items, questions for the dashboards and the local indicators?
No.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0. And now we're moving on to 4.3, and this is the budgets for Vista Charter Middle School for all of our schools. I'll just say it that way. Go ahead, and Arturo is here to present. Thanks, Arturo.
No problem. Good evening, everyone. So yeah, we're covering the 25-26 preliminary budgets, and these all align with the LCAP. So that's the reason why these are set up in the agenda after the LCAP, as a good percentage of the expenditures from the budget are driven by your LCAP. So starting off first, we'll look at the middle school. Okay. So for the middle school, the enrollment projection for the 25-26 school year is 390 students with an 88 percentage of 93%. That's a little more conservative than we've done in the past. In the past, we've done about 95%. So that does lead to additional LCFF revenue of just under $400,000. We see a reduction in federal revenue due to there being no more ESSER, as last year was the last year for ESSER. And then the other state revenues did go up, and that's primarily driven by the community schools implementation grant that all the schools received. The one thing I do want to highlight for the two LA schools is when you look at that other local revenues, don't let that number kind of surprise you. It is a big number at 439,000, but that's because LAUSD requires that we show the state special ed funding as a local revenue versus another state revenue. And for the other schools, you'll see it under other state. And so that's why you'll see a much smaller local revenue number there. So even though the difference is, $830, it's actually more sped revenue that they're receiving. Some of the local revenue was one time. So that's why it's kind of flattened out. On the expenditure side, we generally do see some increases driven by, first, the community schools implementation grant. So you have positions that are being paid off of that grant. You'll see that there. We did make some additions to a couple of TAs for the middle school and a couple of reductions in other areas, but you do see an overall increase for the non-certificated salaries. The increases in salaries for both certificated and non-certificated included those impacted the increase for benefits. In books and supplies, a small increase there. And then in other servings, in the 5,000 series, you do see a reduction primarily driven by the fact that there's no more summer ESSER expenditures. There's no summer ESSER funding. So currently we're projecting the middle school to have a net income of $105,000, which is an increase of $95,000 from the current year. Next, we'll look at Vista Heritage. So their enrollment projection, that's not there. It's 390 students at 93% as well. So at 372, that's an increase of about 2688 points, which leads to the increase in LCFF for about $550,000. I'm going to sound like a broken record for the federal revenue. There's a reduction there again for the fact there's no more ESSER. And in other state revenue, you do see that increase again for community schools. And for Heritage and Condor, you also see a partial increase because of SB 740. As they get higher ADA, their cap for SB 740 increases. And with the bond payments, there's definitely room for that growth. So they're able to get more funding there. Other local revenues, you do see a reduction there. And that's again from some trying to be conservative and taking out some one-time local funding that they got this year. So overall revenues are up about $700,000. On the expenditure side, we do see some community schools increases, but key is 2 additional teachers for Heritage. You see a reduction in classified salaries. That's because of the removal of the transportation staff from the school sites over to the home office. We do see an increase overall in employee benefits driven by the additional staffing in the certificated salaries. We do see an increase in books and supplies driven by textbooks. So Vista Heritage, and you'll see this similar for Condor, are purchasing additional or repurchasing their science kits, which are a little bit more expensive. So you do see that increase there. And in the 5,000 series, that increase is driven again by transportation. So now it's like a flat payment out to the home office and the CMO percentage. So overall, expenditures went up about $400,000, but revenue outpaced that. So we are looking at a net income about $188,000 at the end of the year. Next, we'll go to Condor. Condor, so their enrollment's 385 at 92% ADA. That does lead to about $600,000 in increased LCFF. Again, lower reduction in federal due to no more ESSER. you see the increase for the community schools program as well as SB 740 in other state revenue. And then for Condor specifically, you do see an increase in other local revenues, and that's because both schools, Condor and Heritage, are going to be receiving funding from or payments from the home office to pay for this portion that is part of the CMO. So that's the CMO rent there. So their overall revenues went up about $878,000. On the expenditure side, again, you see positions being added for the community schools program. You see the big reduction in transportation costs, and there also were some adjustments at Condor in classified positions from full-time to part-time, and some balancing positions as well. So that led to that overall reduction. Benefits went up slightly. And then, as I mentioned before, in books and supplies, you do see the increase in textbooks and curriculum, those science kits. So that's a big portion of that increase of $75,000. In the 5,000 series, again, the CMO fee and the transportation costs that are one-time payment are now coming out of the 5,000 series. So you see that big increase there. Overall, they are projecting to have a net income this year about $140,000. Next, we'll go to Horizon. Their enrollment projection is 190 at 93% ADA, so a little under 600,000 in additional LCFF funding. They had less ESSER, so their impact of losing ESSER is much smaller. So you do see an increase in nutrition reimbursement that we're expecting. So their federal revenues actually went up slightly. For other state revenues, however, they had the LCFF multiplier last year. That's gone. So even though they're also getting the community schools implementation grant, one, it's a lower amount than the other schools because of their enrollment number. But then offset with the loss of the LCFF multiplier, they're actually down slightly in other state revenues. And then in other local revenues, that big increase is the SPED increase. As I mentioned before, it shows up there for the LAUSD schools. On the expenditure side, they are adding an additional classroom teacher, as well as their additional community school support. And non-certificated salaries, similar additional community school support. And they're adding, I believe, a TA as well. And then their benefits are going up based off of the increased salary costs. And then their books and supplies are increased in textbooks, materials and supplies, and some additional nutritional costs, which gets offset by that revenue nutrition reimbursement. In the 5,000 series, again, the big change is the CMO fee and the rent. They had an increase in rent for their Prop 39 location at LAUSD. So they're projecting 124,000 net income. However, I think this number is going to go up. Alyssa recently applied for the newly available facility incentive grant from the state. And so I think Horizon is a prime candidate for it. So they should be able to get back about 75% of their Prop 39 costs, which would just increase that positive income number at the end of the year. Palm Lane. So Palm Lane's the ones in the tightest position. Their enrollment's based off of 305 students and 92% ADA. Again, their SCFF only went up slightly to about 388,000. Federal revenues are down significantly. One, ESSER, and then two, they had gotten the last payment of the employee retention credit. So that's gone. Other state revenues did go up by SPED, and the biggest portion being the community schools funding, and then being conservative on their other local revenues. So that went down slightly. On the expenditure side, so they are adding 2 additional teachers plus their community school support. We're adding an additional after-school coordinator for classified, although that's covered out of ELOP, so that's going to balance out. The other areas are pretty much kind of flat to where they were at this year. Although you do see a negative number there for their net income, that's driven by the fact that a lot of their expenditures are going to be utilizing restricted funds that they received in prior years. So their unrestricted fund balance is going to go up at a minimum about 75,000, but it'll probably be closer to about 200,000. The other thing for Palm Lane is that that's the other school that also applied for the facility incentive grant. They're a good candidate, but they had a lower than expected unduplicated percentage last year, free and reduced lunch percentage. So that's going to make it a little tougher for them to get the grant. But if they don't get it for this year, we're hoping that the window will open up again next year, and then they'll hopefully have a higher free and reduced lunch percentage for this upcoming school year. Vista Meridian, so their projection is based off of 300 students at 90% ADA. Again, driven by their ADA, it's about almost $800,000 in additional LCFF. They didn't have any ESSER, so their federal revenues definitely went up about 45,000. And then other state revenues, they have the community schools implementation grant an increase in SB 740, and then generally, increase in SPED, et cetera. But the biggest portion is that community schools implementation grant. And we kept their local revenue projection flat compared to this year. So overall, 1.2 million in increased revenue. On the expenditure side, they have 4 new teachers coming in next school year, as well as their portion of the community school staff. On the classified side, we moved transportation, but we added some community school positions, added a couple additional TAs for the additional students and teachers. So just up slightly. Benefits went up, primarily driven off of the additional certificated staffing that's coming in. Books and supplies, mostly increase in nutrition, but also some books, some textbooks and curriculum as they're reordering and increasing based off the new enrollment number. And then the 5,000 series, so the big increases there. This upcoming year, they're paying for a full year of rent versus kind of a half year rent that they did this year. Transportation is going to be a big payment out because it's coming to the home office, and then a couple other smaller expenditures there. So overall, net income is going to be a little bit tighter, just about $63,000, which is a little bit down versus the current year. But the big driver for them is going to be that ADA percentage. So if they're able to grow by an additional 1% ADA, they get like an additional $100,000. So it's going to be key to drive that number. Vista Lago. So we've been working a lot on this budget. So it's based back again on 170 students. And this one will probably fluctuate again until we get to the first interim. Couple of good notes or changes from the last time we talked. So first is based off of the recruitment and the grade breakdowns on how they expect to fill the 170 students. It leans more towards the higher grades and high school grades, as well as the student population appears to be a little bit of a higher unduplicated percentage than what we had in the petition budget. So that leads to that increased LCFF. So about an extra, $36,000. Federal revenues, that difference is pretty much just driven by the COLA since we did the petition for it. It does not include any title funding, as in the first year they may not receive title funding. So we're trying to be as conservative as possible. If they're able to obtain some title funding, then that will be incremental to that. And then in the other state revenue, Dr. Real was able to get a grant for the school that it's helping with a couple of positions. So that's a big help. So an extra, it's about $120,000 of that increase there. The additional increase is based off of, again, COLA increases since the petition budget was done. On the expenditure side, we updated salaries based off of the current salary schedule, and they have hired a couple of teachers. So based off of where they're at on the salary schedule, and one of the budgeted teachers was also removed as not being necessary at this point. But overall, that only provided about $25,000 in savings. Classified staff costs are a little bit higher, primarily by the fact that there's higher rates now than the petition year 2 years ago. Benefits are down slightly, primarily driven by the fact that there's one less teacher. So Vista is very generous with their health benefits. So we budget very conservatively, so that's a big portion of that. Books and supplies, we did increase as there's additional areas that we needed to add expenditures, such as custodial, so that you see that went up. And then the 5,000 series also went up to increase the facility costs in terms of the higher expected facility costs that we're foreseeing. You see that also in capital outlay for the installation of the possible modulars that are going to be installed. And then the loan interest here is separate from the loan you're seeing the agenda later on. It's a loan on the building side. So it's a little bit different, but that's what's there for this year. With all that though, currently projecting to, be in the black about 25,000. But again, the key thing here is going to be that 88 percentage because that can have it swing one way or the other. And as we get the modulars and everything set up, we'll come back and adjust as costs get realized and not off of just estimates. Okay. So those are the schools. And then quickly, just the home office, as this is the first year for the home office. So there are shared salaries that all the schools pay for. So those aren't included on here because those are on each of the schools' individual budgets. But these are the costs that the home office is going to be seeing themselves directly. So the majority of their payments are the CMO fees coming in from the school, about $1.6 million. 3 of the schools will be utilizing the transportation that the home office is going to be providing, and that's about $930,000. And the other local revenues are it's the home office's agreement with LAAE. So revenue's about just under 2.8 million. On the expenditure side, most of those salaries there are the transportation positions, and then a couple of office positions for the home office. And so you see the benefits off of that. And then they do have, about $25,000 to spend for materials and supplies for the year. The majority is in the 5,000 series, and that would cover insurance costs for all the schools. There's some PD in there. There's transportation costs such as gas, car washes, repairs. So about 1.8 total. Expenditures about just under 2.7. So net income about 101,000 for the home office for that upcoming school year. And then you have your May check register. Questions?
Thank you. That's a lot. Questions?
No.
I have a couple. So the SPED increase, is that rate increase or number of student increase?
It's a mixture. So the ADA rate's going up slightly, about 2.5%, 2.3%, but then the majority is driven by the ADA growth at each of the school sites.
Okay, great. And then the home budget, I heard the salaries piece. Can you explain? So are we carrying salaries in the home office, or how are they being?
So you're carrying a couple of salaries at the home office, but the majority of the home office positions, superintendent, assistant superintendent, some of the other staffing that's been there before, it's kind of grandfathered in. So they're split across the different school sites to facilitate STIRs and PERS, et cetera.
Got it. Okay. All right. That makes sense to me. I understand. Okay. And then I think the last question just for you or for staff is, are there particular areas of the budget that concern you, or that can you give me like some highlights of the things that might be, you talked about ADA being important. We got that, but are there other things in the budget that might concern you that we should be helping look at, or we should be guiding our attention to later in the process as we go on?
So in general, definitely ADA is my biggest concern. And then it'll kind of depend by school. Most of the schools, I feel very confident in the budgets that have been put in place. The biggest question mark is going to be Lago, just because it's new year or brand new school starting up. And so you don't always know all the costs that will come up. We try to, pull in a buffer, but sometimes it's not enough. So that's the only.
And then I think my last question, when I look at Palm Lane, you'd mentioned that it's the tightest budget, but they have a number of their overall equity is still a really strong position, right? And so
Correct. Yeah.
essentially, this might be a tougher year, but they have plenty of equity to.
Correct. Yeah. Like they're extremely healthy in terms of their reserve. And as I mentioned before, most of the expenditures are not most, but a good portion are going against restricted funding. So even though you do see a negative at the end of the year, their war chest is actually going to go up. So still in a good, healthy spot.
Okay. Those are my questions. All right. If there are no further questions, then we'll go ahead and just take the vote on that. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. That passes 3-0. Thank you, Arturo. All right. Let's see. We're on on 4.4 now. The Prop 28 Arts Grant or reports. So I'll take a motion on that.
I motion that.
Second.
Okay. Anything, Alyssa, on Prop 28 art grants?
Nothing other than I heard that some of the CTE funding that we get is going to be able to go towards some of this, which will be great. So it'll be good to have some of the arts program connected with the CTE. So, but nothing to this specific. That was
Great.
just from today.
Thank you. Okay. Any questions on this item? Any discussion? Okay. So I'll take the vote. All in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, that passes 3-0. No opposition. All right, we'll move to 4.5. This is the amendment to the facilities lease agreement between Vista, Meridian, Global Academy, and Rancho Santiago Community College District for our high school program. I'll take a motion on that.
I motion that.
I
Thank you.
second.
Thank you. Okay. Anything, Alyssa?
No, this will be huge. Hopefully decrease some of our transportation costs, keep more kids on one site, and hopefully grow our enrollment with Meridian.
Great. Yeah, and I'm super excited that we are now able to contract with some of the first floor rooms that'll give us more of the site. I was lucky to go over to the site right before graduation, and I encourage you all to go out to the site. It's a really great atmosphere on on this building, and it allows them to be close to the community college, and they're doing a great job out there. So having the whole site at some point would be really great. So. All right, I'll take a vote on that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that passes 3-0. Moving on to the 4.6, the VCPS Transportation Safety Plan.
I motion that.
Thank you.
I second.
Okay. Alyssa, anything?
Nothing.
Okay. This is the Transportation Safety Plan. It was, I think, is a requirement of our attorneys to make sure that we have have the plan in place. So I'll go ahead and take a vote on that.
Aye.
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 3-0, that passes. And we'll move on to 4.7, resolution authorizing the loan to Vista Lago Global Academy for Palm Lane Academy. And I'll take a motion first.
I motion that.
I second.
Okay. Arturo is here to present or to give us a comment.
Yeah, I just want to highlight, this has been fairly normal for new schools that Vista has opened up. New charter schools don't have any revenue until September or October, and they only get about 20% payment, and then they have to wait again till January, February. So this is primarily for cash flow purposes.
Okay. And was there, I didn't read interest rate in the resolution. Is this a no interest rate loan?
Vista has generally decided not to charge interest between this. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
This is huge because most charter schools pay 10 to 15% interest on operating income.
Yeah.
So to be able to support them is fantastic.
So the 900,000 is coming out from Palm Lane or
It's coming from their reserves.
from Palm Lane and
It comes from their reserves.
Oh,
So
okay.
it doesn't come from their actual operating budget that they use year to year. It comes from like their savings, so to speak.
Yeah, the way that I understand it is it's a promissory note so that money is owed back to Palm Lane and it will come back to them as a school. The question is the timing of that depending on the Vista Lagos,
So
when it comes back.
yeah, so when Vista Lago opens in August, they don't get money from the state till like October. And so then they have to pay the teachers for August and September. So they need money to pay the teachers. And then it says in the agreement that that money will be paid at the end of the school year. So it's like a 10-month loan.
Right. And from an accounting standpoint, the way that you guys, it shows as part of their overall budget, it's just loaned out, right?
Not in terms of like expenditures, but it does show up in the general ledger as on their cash balance because it is a loan from the other school that they're paying back.
Okay. So, and because we're doing it this way, it won't ever, it will always be recorded as money that needs to go back to Palm Lane.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, that passes 3-0. Moving on to 4.9, facilities lease agreement between Vista Charter and Vista Condor for the home office location. I think Arturo mentioned this in his reporting.
4.8.
Thank you. I always, I usually have my pen. 4.8, thank you. 4.8, I'll take a motion for this
I
is
motion that.
the second action item on the same promissory note. Okay. All right, so all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that passes 3-0. Okay, now we'll move, I'm sorry, to 4.9, which is the facilities lease agreement for the home office. And I think Arturo mentioned this when he was talking about the home office budget and some of the rent that was coming for the school sites. Can I have a motion for that?
I motion that.
Thank you.
A second.
Okay. Alyssa?
This is just standard so that the home office pays for this building and the money doesn't come out of the school's budget, that we're paying the school to utilize this space.
Great. All right, any questions? discussion? Okay, I'll take a vote. All in favor? Aye. Okay, that passes 3-0. Moving on to 4.10, which is the Vista Heritage portion of the same agreement that we just talked about for the 4.9. I'll take a motion.
I motion that.
I second.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, discussion? Okay,
This is just because there are two schools, so we have to split the revenue between the two.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? None. So it's 3-0. That passes. We're on to 4.11, the lease agreement between Vista Charter Public School and Vista Middle School for the home office building located at Parkman. This is again, this is the building in Los Angeles that we've purchased. It's across the street from the middle school there. So I'll take a motion for that approval.
I motion that.
I second.
This is the same item. It's
So
just for
similar
from-
concept, we haven't closed yet on this property, so we're just queuing it up so that when everything closes, there's a lease in place, and the interest on the account is paid by the home office, not by the school. Same concept.
Yep. Okay. Any questions, discussion?
No.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that passes 3-0. And now we are on to 5.1 board comments. Any comments from either of you? Okay.
No comment.
Okay, I've none tonight either. Thank you for, I know this is a short meeting, and we had a meeting a couple weeks ago. Thank you to the board members for making this happen, this special board meeting, because there's some items that are timely that we need to close out before the end of the fiscal year. This is our last meeting before the end of the fiscal year, unless there was some urgent matter that came up that we're not aware of right now. And thank you to Alyssa for sitting in and helping us out. And so that's my only comments for tonight. We are going to go into closed session just briefly. I think that item won't take very long, and then we'll be back out to report out anything that might be taken as an action for closed session. So with that, I'll move past 5 and move to 6, and I'll just we'll adjourn to closed session. We'll be back. Thank you.
Gracias.
All right, I will reconvene us from closed session. There were no reportable items in the closed session tonight. And I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I motion that.
Thank
I
you.
second.
All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
We are adjourned until our next meeting. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.